All right, let's get this shit show started, shall we?
This book is a little bit of Christian missionary propaganda.
And he perhaps is based upon a well-known literary figure, or perhaps even a historical figure.
Now, didymus is simply the Greek word for twin. It's also used as the Greek word for testicles, for obvious reasons. There are usually two of them.
She kissed them.
Your fruit shall be without root, and your shoots shall be dried up like a branch scorched by a strong wind.
How many of you find this child Jesus an adorable, little, cute little baby? Nobody? Good.
I sprinkled my body with the bathwater that his mother had used to wash him off, and in that instant I was healed.
Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Squalitude, located not far from the Redneck Mecca. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts is moseying over here to join me. Ash, Buddha, and Lord Squeakington are in my room. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and he's cats. Get over it. And this is kind of a Gnostics text episode, but I'll just go ahead and tell you the beginning of the episode. Hertzie and I talk about the Derek Chauvin verdict, Josh Duggar getting busted for child pornography, and Jerry Falwell Jr. showing up at a party at Liberty University and telling the senior, y'all come on over to my house, we're going to have a real graduation party. No, he was drunk and slurring his words. So, and then we get to more of the Acts of Thomas. And once we're done with the Acts of Thomas, I'm doing another book. I'm gonna, it'll be somehow tied to religion, but it's not going to be any of these Gnostic texts or anything like that. Because, man, this is the worst thing we've read. I mean, this is actually worse than the Rastafarian stuff. And I need a breather. I'm sure y'all need a breather. And then I'll wade back in, when we're done with the other thing, we'll wade back into this shit. That somebody is just fussing because he wants to come up, but he doesn't want to come up. He just walks over and meows at me and walks off. And where he gets up and sits in my lap and demands attention. Which makes it hard for me to do some things that I need to do on the computer because I need to use both hands for that. And when I'm cradling the cat in one hand, it doesn't work. All right, and it has been a bit of a mess around here. I was scheduled to put in 6 days this week. I put in 4. Wednesday, they sent me a text on my way into work, said, take the day off. So I went back home and went to bed. Then on Friday, they said, there's not really any point in having you work Sunday, so just take Sunday off. So I did. Now, I need the money, of course, because I'm poor, so I always need the money. But, because of some other things that have been going on around here, I desperately needed the time off as well. So let me get to that. Wednesday morning at like 2 a.m., Tasha woke me up with her screaming. And I went to her and I says, you got to stop. You got to be quiet. I'm trying to sleep. And she didn't see the need to be quiet. I mean, she recognized that she was keeping me up, and her solution, rather than being quiet, as she has done in the past, was to just go out and wander down the street screaming. And I told her that was not a very good idea, but she didn't listen to me. So, I went back to bed, tried to get some sleep, and of course I was really glad when they told me I didn't have to come in on Wednesday. And I go to work, come home, I'm home all day. I didn't go to work. I'm home all day, and I sleep for a bunch of it, and I'm up, and I notice that she hasn't come back home, and I'm a little concerned. And I look in her room, and she's left her phone, so I can't text her or make sure that she's okay. So I just do the stuff around the house that I need to do, and then it starts getting late. So I'm definitely very concerned, because that means there's something probably wrong in all likelihood. So I message her dad on Facebook and say, hey, she's been gone all day. I'm going to go file a missing persons report on her tomorrow. And he says, oh, she's not missing. She got arrested for public intoxication. I don't have the money to bail her out, so she's just going to have to sit in jail to her court date. Maybe they'll send her to a shrink and she'll get the help she needs. LOL. Yeah, that really did not sit well with me at all. Fucker should have told me that she had been arrested. Because he knew, because she made her one phone call. And he didn't. Which I was very, very upset about. And then he, we have two mutual friends on Facebook, Tasha and I, and they've been just giving me support. None of them can make it out here to help in any way whatsoever. And I messaged them and explained to them what had happened. And they said, they were both upset at her dad, and they were concerned for her, but relieved that she was not dead or something. And then one of them says, oh, yeah, he says, he starts telling me about this place that she had been going to here in town for therapy some years back, which he'd never told me about this before. And they had to get the police to take her, which kind of tells me that she was being court ordered. She wouldn't go voluntarily. They had to get the police to take her every time. It's like, why the fuck didn't you tell me this shit earlier? He gave me the name and the number of the place, and the next time I have a day off during the week, because, they're only open during the week, and I don't have much time on my lunch to give them a call, I'm going to call them and see what I can find out from them. I know they can't tell me any of her details or anything like that, but I may be able to get some kind of information that will help me get her back into treatment with them. Assuming they were giving her the correct treatment to begin with. Maybe I can provide them with information to ensure that she does get the correct kind of treatment. I don't know, but I've got to try. I also messaged a guy I know who happens to be a judge in Alabama. And before he was a judge, he was a cop for about 20 years. So I explained the situation with her getting arrested for public intoxication and her father's speculation that while she's in jail, they will recognize her condition and send her to someone who can help. And he said that's not going to happen. That she would, they'll just keep her there until, the day of her hearing, which will be either Monday or Tuesday, I guess, and then, cut her loose. So I am, I passed that, of course, along to her father. He hasn't bothered to reply. He's pretty much avoiding taking any kind of responsibility, and barely even acknowledges that she has the problems that she does. So, anyways, to move on slowly to slightly happier things. On work last month for Earth Day, they, every year we do this thing where, we go out and clean up the area around the facility. And they said, we're going to do a community garden this year and sign up if you want to volunteer for that. So I signed up for that. And I figured, hey, that'll enable me to grow some things there as well as some things at the house. And so I made a list of things that I was going to get. Well, we go out on Earth Day and they already have all the plants bought. They didn't ask us what ones we wanted, but they had, they had all the ones. And so I helped plant them and water them. And yesterday I'm like, well, I think what I'm going to do is, there's a bunch of stuff that they've got down there in that plot. I'm not going to grow as much stuff here at the house, and I have that one planter in the front yard that I made. I think I will go and get some flowers to put in there. Because not too many of my neighbors have flowers, so the yards aren't very colorful. There's a couple who have vegetable gardens, and there's one or two that actually have some flowers growing, but most people don't. And so I was like, I'll go get some flowers since I'm not going to be spending money on getting plants for the community garden. So I go to get the flowers, and I thought it might might help cheer Tasha up a little bit when she gets back. And on my way there, this guy hollers at me, and I know him. He's probably in his 60s, I guess. And I thought he was homeless. He rides a bike around, and that's the way he's done it for years. And Tasha knows him, and is friends with him. And so he wanted to tell me that, what was up with her, and he told me where she was. He wanted to make sure I knew where she was. And he actually had witnessed what happened. And apparently she had, he said that she'd gotten a beer at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and had drunk it and was still wandering around the road that the trailer park is off of. Is basically an undeveloped industrial area. There's a cement plant, there's the farmer's co-op, there's like this concrete slab that is owned by the cement company, but they always try to sell it and never do, and it's got stuff parked all over it. Then you've got a pawn shop, a gas station. Then you get to the corner, which is the main drag in town, and that's where you start getting into retail, more retail stuff and things like that. And anyway, she was down, I guess, about where the cement plant was when he saw her, when she was drinking the beer and she was fussing and everything. And like I said, that was like 3, 4 in the morning. And then he said he saw her about 7 o'clock in the morning or so. And that's when the police were talking to her. And he went up to the cops and, was telling them, hey, she's not right in the head. This guy is not very well educated. And he's black, so he showed a lot of courage going up to the police and talking to them. And, he said, they were like, yeah, we just want to talk to her. She may have had, I couldn't quite tell from the way he was talking, whether or not she actually had an altercation at this time with somebody, or if it had happened a couple of days ago. Either case, that she'd gotten in an argument with an old boss of hers that she ran into about something, I don't know what. And he, he said that they next thing he knew, they had her in cuffs and were taking her down. And he's the one who said, well, she'll be out by Monday or Tuesday, depending on what her court date is. I'm going to guess he's got a little more experience with that than I do. I don't know. So, and then I went and got the flowers and got them home and turned up the soil in the planter and started, went to plant the flowers and realized, oh, I can't put all of these in the planter like I thought I could. They're supposed to be spaced out apart, really wide. So I put some in the planter and then I put the others around the deck and behind the shed that I have. So, and they seem to be doing okay. So, we're getting rain the next couple of days, so hopefully they'll be nice and pretty here in the near future, and we'll have some color around this place. On the plus side, it has been a lot quieter around here, so I'm somewhat grateful for that. I'm just not thrilled with the way it happened. And another happy little note. Yesterday was 2 weeks after my final shot of the Moderna vaccine. So I am at peak immunity, baby! Woohoo! Happy, happy, happy. Now we just got to do something about the variants that are cropping up and the huge number of people who are dying in India. I saw an article the other day that said the estimates were 500 million people are infected in India, or have been infected, I should say. And who knows how many have died. The records, their healthcare system isn't adequate enough to do accurate testing. And they can't get people into the hospitals. They're having problems with equipment supplies. It's a nightmare. So, Biden, however, looks to be at least willing to do something to help. I know he's sending them supplies that they desperately need. And there is talk, which I don't know how it'll go, but of just yanking the patents on the vaccines so, the companies in India can make the stuff without having to go broke paying royalties for the patents. India's the largest vaccine manufacturer in the world, so they ought to at least have the capabilities of making the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, since that's more like a traditional one. And the sooner we get it, sooner we get everyone on the planet that we possibly can vaccinated, the sooner the danger from this will be over. And a final thing before we get to Hertzie and I, is it being the first of the month. I want to thank all the Patreon supporters who support the podcast. And I got a message the other day from one supporter who was very apologetic, saying that they had to cut their support because, their finances had just taken an awful hit and they felt horrible about it. And I told them, don't worry, I certainly understand what it's like to have your finances dry up on you, where things go south and you suddenly have more expenses than you planned on. So, if you're in that boat, don't feel guilty. Believe me, to quote Bill Clinton, I feel your pain. So, all right, with all that out of the way, let's get to Hertzie and I.
I'm going to say we should probably do a follow-up if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, the episode went out so late that I was able to discuss it when I did my intro to it. I pointed out that it had been, we had recorded it before the verdict had come out, and fucker's guilty, and hot damn.
I mean, it's one of those, though, where it's like, it's one of those, it's like, that is great, but that can't be the piecemeal.
No. Well, and it's also, it's not an indication that things have changed for the better, but it is certainly better than it has been in the past. Oops. Hang on. He just ripped my headphones off when I gave him the flea medicine. So I got to find everything and plug them back in.
Come here, baby boy. Come here.
There we go. And I can hear you.
Oh. Okay. So it is interesting, though, because it has potentially signaled change in other cities, though.
Yeah.
For example, St. Paul Police Department has started working with social workers for mental health cases. I don't know exactly what the plan is. I am hoping to keep an eye on it.
Mm-hmm. The other thing...
You okay?
Yeah. There's two things we do need to talk about, and they will go out in this episode because they're far more interesting than the shit we got to read.
I was going to say, what are we reading this week?
Oh, it's more of the same. I'll send you the link. And it's...
I'm like, okay, that either means articles or Thomas.
It's Thomas. And
God damn it.
It's down to 111. And... I wound up with, I don't remember how much fucking content, but we started at 104 last time. Now we start at 111. I thought, we ended up with an hour's episode, and I thought, when because I did the intro wrapper before I edited our call. And I'm thinking, well, we didn't do that much, so it's not going to be that long. And it wound up being 59 minutes and so many odd seconds total.
Time flies when we're talking.
Yeah. But we have to talk about, and this, like I said, this has to go out, about Josh Duggar getting busted.
Yes! Excuse me.
Well...
I might be a little interested in that.
Well, you see, the first news story I saw about it just said that he'd been arrested by the Department of Homeland Security, no mention of what the charges were.
Okay, and that's exactly what I saw. And I saw some people talking about how it was probably tax fraud.
No.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what it's usually busted for,
Not by Homeland Security.
Well, I didn't see the Homeland Security part yet. Wait, he got busted by Homeland Security?
Yes, and there's only a couple of reasons why you get busted by Homeland Security. One is you're a threat to national security. The other is that you're buying child pornography off the internet.
I mean, he is a radical Christian, so it's entirely possible it's either. But I've also heard that the spoilers have come out about this.
Oh, yes, it most definitely was kiddie porn.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in the group I posted that, when I saw the first story, and it was from E! Online, and they didn't mention what he was busted for, just said it was Homeland Security. I said, bet you it's kiddie porn. He was buying kiddie porn. Sure enough, a couple hours later, that's what he was busted for. He was busted for paying for kiddie porn.
And like I said in one of the groups, or in one of the posts that I saw about this, like, I am not shocked that he got busted for something illegal.
No.
I am slightly more shocked that it's kiddie porn, only because I figured it was going to be tax fraud. Because that's usually what these guys get busted with. It's like, oh, I guess we'll give you the bare minimum for this.
Yeah, but
kiddie porn. Ooh. Now, Duggar hasn't been in the QAnon movement at all that you know of, right? Because I haven't heard his name in those little bits that I catch.
Right. I've not seen anything reference, tying the two of them together in one way or another.
Yeah, well, because he kind of disappeared after the show.
Well, yeah, because it came out that he'd been molesting his sisters.
Well, yeah, which, I mean, also, definitely ties into kiddie porn again. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, it's just, I don't, okay. Sorry, just the idea of that is just nauseating.
Well,
on so many levels. Anyways.
Yeah, no, you're not, you're not wrong. I mean, what I have, because I've listened to podcasts where the subject of child pornography has come up. It's not, the podcasts aren't focused around people who get arrested for those things, but they've done episodes where that's come up. And
yeah, well, mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. There is so much of it circulating on the internet that the feds, this is their focus. If it's something that nobody has seen before, which means there are new children being victimized, the feds will investigate it. Or if you're paying for it.
Oh, that's just fucked up.
Yeah, that's how bad the problem is.
Well, what bugs the crap out of me is QAnon started on 4chan and 8chan, which have major ties to pedophilia.
Well, yeah.
It's like, click two links over and you're on a pedophilia channel, but what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Save the children my ass.
4chan wasn't as bad as 8chan, but neither one of them was a good thing, and 8chan apparently was really bad.
Well, Ron Watson, who bought 8chan from, and unfortunately I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I know.
So he is, I think it's Frank something, who's been one of the biggest proponents that Ron Watson is indeed Q, or at least is the current Q.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing about that I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
Watkins?
Yeah, Ron Watkins. And then his son basically outed him as Q and then backtracked on that.
Well, I mean, and from what I could tell, he kind of gave like honestly a very Q response, which kind of made me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was one of those I was like, okay, fine. So Ron Watkins, who took over 8chan as a website and such, really from what I've heard, has a very prolific sexualness, where he likes lots of sex and lots of stuff. And it sounds like he was into some stuff that would be considered very bad, kind of like the kiddie porn. So he was all for having that stuff all over 8chan because, hey, what do you know?
Yeah, well,
he's admin, so.
Yeah, well, he ran a whole bunch of domains that were tied directly to kiddie porn. And he lives like Singapore or somewhere. He lives somewhere
Philippines.
Where, yeah,
Philippines.
where you know, there's a whole lot of abuse of underage children in those.
Yeah. I don't know if he for sure has immigrated here. I don't think so, but he visits fairly often.
Well, Ron Watkins is, he was born here, he grew up here, and then he joined the military, went off overseas, and then, when he got out of the military, and he didn't do a very long stint in the military,
shocked, I tell you.
Like 4 years, and then he just moved full-time to the Philippines, and his son, who is an American because, his father was an American, has apparently never spent any significant amount of time living in the U.S. at all.
Well, I've heard like some of the, and honestly, I've heard that some places like the Philippines and Singapore, like if you're born there and stuff, it's like there are things that are very different culture-wise, where how people do things there versus here. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, it's like, yeah, it's different. We don't have X, Y, and Z, but we don't have to worry about all this other stuff that you do. And I'm like, yeah, I could see why, Well,
if
you can, you just stick around.
Well, yeah, the cost of living in those places is so very low. In the early 90s, I knew a woman whose son was stationed in the Philippines, and he had a Filipino maid, and she was like one of the best paid maids on the base, and he was paying her like $40 a week. That's how inexpensive the cost of living is there.
Moving back to Duggar.
Oh yeah.
I'm actually checking the subreddit Q Cult headquarters, where they keep track. It's not like a organized archive of QAnon stuff, but people post about this kind of stuff. It doesn't sound like he was anywhere in the Q community type stuff. It will be interesting to see if this goes anywhere with that group. Yeah. And that's just me because I have a curiosity about these kind of things, though. A lot of Q people are like, it's all over the map with that group. Like, there are people who were super, super liberal, who just took one dive and just went all the way down. And then there's others who, were already in that right-wing area, and for them it was just a hop, skip, and a jump. And it sounds like there's a whole bunch of them who potentially could be child molesters themselves.
Yeah, it's the Q. What I assume you've seen that meme of
Hold on, actually.
Huh?
I was going to say, actually, apparently, a lot of Q are claiming that this is proving true their conspiracies about the celebrity pedo ring.
Of course, here, but
that's on a different Reddit. But actually, this Reddit for Q stuff is about as good as that one, as the other one.
Yeah. But I assume you've seen that meme that's talking about QAnon and all the the thing about pedophilia and how QAnon seems to ignore the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
It's like, well, imagine that. And, the other thing that people seem to have a hard time grasping, even in the atheist community, is that if the estimate is that about 6% of all Catholic priests are pedophiles. Right? Well, imagine what the reaction would be if it turned out 6% of imams were pedophiles. And the various mosques in the U.S. had been shuffling them around and hiding their behavior. We know what would happen. Motherfuckers would be out there burning down mosques left and right. But
Yep.
Nobody's touching the Catholic Church because, we're kind of inured to them since they're a quote-unquote Christian organization.
Which is also interesting because there are so many sects of Christianity that have, that Catholics are in various forms the bad guy. The Seventh-day Adventists think that they're satanic. The Baptists and the Presbyterian and the Methodists, I think, just think that they're kooky and old.
Right.
But you get to you get to the evangelicals. There's a fair number of them that who have thought or do think that the Catholic Church is, it's going to bring in the New World Order.
Right. And I'm sure you've heard of Jack Chick and his tracks.
Oh yeah.
Okay. He had a whole bunch of them that were rabidly anti-Catholic.
I would love to get an entire thing of Chick tracks, but the problem is if you want to order them, you have to order like 10,000.
Well, and you also have to pay for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to pay for like one of each, like maybe $1. The artist should at least get something. I will not complain about the art on those Chick tracks. The art was well done.
Some of them, because remember, there were various artists. Jack Chick wrote them and took all the credit, but there were various artists, and they've been able. Somebody, and there's a site out there that does this. Somebody has been able to figure out, not necessarily the names of the various artists, but has been able to say, well, this group was done by artist A, this group was done by artist B, this group was done by artist C, and so on. I think in some cases they have figured out who some of the artists are. And they got the shaft, of course, because that's what,
I'm shocked, I tell you, shocked.
Yeah. There is there was a guy, he's not well known anymore, but he was local to me, by the name of Tony Alamo, who was an evangelical Christian nutbag who was rabidly anti-Catholic. And, you'd go to, this'll really date me, you'd go to like a shopping mall, and when you came out, you'd find a screed stuck to your windshield by folks from Tony Alamo. And he was a dude who, he was one of these mega church pastors before there was even really that term. And here's how creepy this motherfucker was. When his wife died, he had her placed in a glass coffin that they kept in the sanctuary of his main church because she was going to be resurrected one day. And yeah, they dumped chemicals in her to preserve her. And dude made a lot of his money off of slave labor selling a line of fashion clothing. Have you seen the George Michael video for his song Faith?
Nope.
Okay, he wears a motorcycle jacket in there. That motorcycle jacket was designed by Tony Alamo. That's how big this guy was. He had, one of the hottest artists of the late 80s, early 90s wearing his shit in music videos. So,
But yeah, it is kind of interesting how they do that. But Duggars. So right now, looks like Hugh has decided that the Duggars or that Josh Duggar is proof of all of their conspiracies, despite the fact that he was super conservative
and super religious, which there's not really that much difference.
No. No, so it's kind of one of those where it's just like, that doesn't work with your pedophile ring, because...
Yeah.
Anyways. All right. What's the second thing you want to talk about?
Okay. Have you seen the tweet that has the video of Jerry Falwell Jr. showing up at Liberty University and saying to the seniors, Mom, we're going to my house and have a real graduating party?
Please tell me this has happened, like, within the last week. Like, the video is from this week.
So far as I know, yes.
Oh, Jerry Falwell Sr., how your birthright has just boned themselves.
I am absolutely certain Daddy was the same way.
Yeah, but back then they could keep it quiet.
Yeah.
The fact is, Jerry Falwell Jr. can't figure out how to keep his ass off of social media.
Right, well, he didn't post this. Somebody else did. I'm pulling.
Again, can't keep his ass off of social media.
Yeah.
Pose yourself as a super Christian doing some stupid shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that those seniors had friends who were being kicked out for doing something, as blatantly horrible as holding hands or some bullshit.
Or not being white.
Also that.
Yeah. I will send you the link here via Skype.
We could Skype my live reactions to this.
Uh-huh. And just send it to you.
I love how it's called Christian Nightmares.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Be quiet for a second because I'm going to play the video. You won't hear it, but my software will record the audio. So.
Okay, so tell me when you start, and then we'll try and sync it.
Okay. I am starting now.
All the seniors, our farm, on May 8th, we're going to have the real Liberty graduation. All the seniors, our farm, on May 8th, we're going to have the real Liberty graduation.
Oh, that is so creepy.
Okay, and
I mean, it's only 7 seconds long, but it's just, and he's so old.
Well, he's also got to be hammered.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's not slurring, but it's kind of like one of those. You're like, this is like that level of drunk where you're like, I love you, man.
Yeah. And I posted the tweet in the TGIA members only lounge. Someone in that group replied to the post. It was a woman, and it's really interesting. She said, I went to Liberty University. He had a graduation party at his house every year for seniors. It's bizarre. They hire a carnival-type company to set up games and concessions. There are parking...
Okay, that's not too bad.
There are parking attendants.
Okay, that's awkward.
You can kayak on his pond. That's a big fucking pond. And, of course, fireworks. Every room in their house is open. I remember stealing a pump of Becky's lotion in their bathroom and jumping on their bed for a quick photo op. I'll have to see if I can dig it up. She has not responded to that since then. But, man, you know...
I mean, okay, now, I'm going to be the... It's not devil's advocate, but I'm going to be the opposite side for... Well, not the opposite side. I'm going to be like... Because a carnival thing... I mean, honestly, some of that, until you got to the house part, it sounds extravagant, yes.
Right.
I mean, but it's not... It didn't borderline... It wasn't creepy. I was like, okay, so you have fireworks, you have kayaking, you have a carnival. I mean... I would love to have gone to a party. I still would love to go to that kind of thing nowadays. And then it's like, okay, now you can stay in my house. It's like, you know what? No. And the parking attendance is just weird.
Yeah, that's a little odd. And it's kind of strange that, you know, a university which absolutely has restrictive codes would have allowed things like that to happen.
Yes. I think we've hit the two topics that we wanted to grab today, correct?
Yeah. Just a quick recap. Your thoughts on the Derek Chauvin verdict. I mean, I know you're happy, but I'm sure everybody will want to know how happy you are. And, you know, your local view on things.
My limited local view.
Right. Because you had to work when all that shit was being aired, and if you didn't want to watch it, I cannot blame you, because I sure shit didn't want to watch any of that, and I didn't.
No, I fully admit I took the coward's way out. I did not watch.
No, that's not a coward's way out. I mean, who? One of the jurors said, you know, every day they were there, they had to watch the video of George Floyd being murdered. I mean, god damn, that's got to give people PTSD.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of watching, because what Minneapolis and Hennepin County did is, because we can't have press in the actual courtroom,
right? They
broadcast it, which of course is how everyone could watch it at the same time, which I honestly think it's not the worst idea.
No,
in general.
No, it's not bad. It's not great.
It is. Either way, the next 3 trials, which will be for the 3 other officers involved, will also be broadcast.
Oh, God.
And honestly, and I take back that 3. They might be tried all together.
My understanding is they are all going to be tried all together. However, it may not work out that way, depending on shit that happens. And, you know, I can't argue with that either way.
Yeah. So, anyway, speaking as the limited knowledge local, so please, if you're from Minneapolis, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, great that we got that. It's a start.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, it's such a hard, like, it's an awkward bittersweet, because there was so much evidence and such that it's like, I was, you know, I got a message from one of my coworkers going, oh, they're going to read the verdict soon. And I was like, holy shit, already?
Yeah. I was shocked about that.
That was the biggest shock, because I was like, holy shit, if it's this early and this fast, it's got to be guilty. It's definitely not hung. So I whipped on NPR, which is the local Minnesota public radio. They were talking to several experts and such about what was going on. I was on Facebook. Andrew Torres was talking about some stuff, and I'm like, yep, the experts on NPR are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, of course, I'm like, I know you're smart and all, but, you know, just adding to the factor that multiple people from multiple, you know, local people who are much more, well, as interested in the case, if not much more interested in the case than even Andrew Torres.
Right. Right.
Because actually many of them were black attorney professionals. So yes, they are heavily invested. But yes, everyone was saying, we're pretty sure it's going to come guilty, you know, especially with it being this fast. So
Yeah.
So when it came out, I fully admit there were tears. I ugly cried, all that stuff. At the same time going, that's how much we have to do for somebody who is this obviously guilty.
Right.
We have sentencing, which will take place in June. The judge will be the one doing the full sentencing. Chauvin waived the jury. So that will be our next. I mean, his bail was revoked, so that's a good thing. He was taken straight into custody.
Yeah.
Also a good thing. I believe I've heard that Ellison and company are going to be going for exceptions.
You're breaking up.
My guess is. Oh. Am I breaking up again? Or no?
You're better now. I heard Ellison is going to be going for, and then nothing.
Oh, okay. Ellison, I believe, is going for some kind of waiver, or not waiver, but a legal thing to, and it sounds like he's going to go for more, like potentially more than the maximum. Which, in Chauvin's case, I definitely agree.
Yeah. And honestly, my personal opinion is if you're somebody who is in a position of authority, the penalties you suffer should be higher than those of the average citizen.
Yes. And I mean, and also with it, almost immediately after, we started getting the information of the young girl who was killed in.
Makia.
The young girl who was.
Makia, who was killed in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes, thank you. And so it was one of those that was just like, and here we go again.
Yeah, and
so if you can, listeners, donate to the bail bonds within your area.
Yeah,
because this isn't over.
Yeah. My issue with the Makia, and I forget her last name, I'm not going to look it up, but my issue with that is they're not going to do the kind of necessary investigation work to figure out, okay, doesn't matter if the shooting of her was justified or not, how did we get to this point where a girl who's in foster care is having to wield a knife? Something went wrong there long before the cops ever were called. And it doesn't matter if she called the cops or somebody else did.
Yeah. At the same time, and I agree that there needs to be some stuff looked at there. We also need to look at the cops and say, well, where's your de-escalation here? Because
right.
Hey, there's no reason you need to go in guns blazing.
Right, and I mean, I'm not going to say, well, it would be impossible to de-escalate that situation, but in a situation like that, if the only resource the officer has that he can be sure will de-escalate the situation is the use of deadly force, then there's a problem. I mean, sooner or later, you're going to wind up in a situation where literally it doesn't matter who you are, deadly force is your only option. But we don't know if that was really the case in this instance or not.
Yeah. I would definitely go with no, because I mean, it was a bunch of teenagers fighting.
Right. And there's there are what are known as beanbag rounds. Oh, and of course the police use some other term for it, but if you go on Wikipedia and type in beanbag round, you'll find out exactly what I'm talking about and find out the name that the police use. There's, in theory, non-lethal. I mean, obviously, if you shoot somebody in the right spot, it'll kill them. But it's like, okay, so why is it acceptable that the cop's first response to a situation is to engage in using lethal force when there's the possibility you have a non-lethal weapon that, if modifications were made, that could be his primary weapon? Beanbag rounds are supposed to be fired out of a shotgun. All right, so, shotgun is vastly different than a sidearm, but if you're a fan of the Mad Max movies, you know that Max carried a sawed-off shotgun that he had in a hip holster, well, a leg holster. Why don't cops have that? Tasers may not always work in certain situations, even at close range, but a beanbag round at close range isn't necessarily dramatically different than a bullet, other than the kind of gun they're fired out of, and they're not an automatic death sentence, which a gun that shoots a bullet can be, especially when you're trained to hit the center of mass, i.e., nailing something that's going to stop your heart or paralyze you for life, whereas beanbag round may not do that.
Yeah, I think we really need to look at getting more technology for some of that to see what kind of stuff we can do. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do. It's a long, huge thing.
Exactly. And that's my point, is there's going to be times where nobody wants to do it, but the only way to save a life is to take a life. But we need to examine everything leading up to that point to see if there's something we could have done to ensure that it never got that way again. I mean, was the foster home that Michaela lived in, were the people there trained to identify that she had issues that could lead to this and do something to prevent that from happening? I
should say, if I recall correctly, the issue was that she was getting bullied.
We don't really know. There was, at least as far as I last checked, somebody at the foster home called 911 and said, hey, there's these people here and they're trying to stab me. And, some say it was Micaiah, others say it may not have been her. But when the cops showed up, that's what they knew, is there was something bad going down and somebody was trying to stab somebody. And there's Micaiah with the knife, and so they just drop her. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Say that's the only way you could have stopped her from stabbing somebody else, possibly fatally, who was there. Is there anything we could have done to prevent her from being in that situation to begin with? And I can't see them doing an investigation to figure that out.
And as much as that investigation, could definitely be of use, I honestly think the cops investigating the cops is as important, if not more.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely, we don't want somebody investigating themselves so they can clear themselves of wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This would be the Gnostics, according to Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And letter was my... I love when they have these parentheses. Why do we have so many goddamn parentheses? And letter was my, and the king, or as ambassador. So was it the king or the ambassador? Make up your mind, Thomas. Sealed it with his handwrite his.
Yeah, okay.
I hate this so much. Because of the evil ones, and even the children of the Babylonians and the Tyrannus, demons of the Labyrinthists. Okay, that I know that was just one sentence, but dear God, what the hell does that even mean?
I have no idea.
Cool. It looks like we're going revolutions today.
Mm-hmm.
It flew and lighted down by me and became all speech. The letter? And I, at the voice of it and the feeling of it, started up out of sleep, and I took it up and kissed it, and the seal brake and read it. And it was written concerning that which was recorded in mine heart. So it was a love letter.
Yeah, or it was
something.
Something. I'm thinking about the whole, breaking of the seventh seal of the letter that brings about the apocalypse.
Makes about as much sense as anything else.
Pretty much.
I was going to say, I haven't had a lick of liquor, and all of a sudden I'm thinking I need some.
Ha. Trust me, it doesn't help.
Which I really... Yeah, I was going to say, and I got to be careful with that, because I drank way too much amaretto, and had a very, very bad morning.
Yeah, I've been there. Have you... Oh, because this is just more interesting. Do you know what a Godfather cocktail is?
No?
It is half bourbon and half amaretto with, however many dashes of bitters you'd like to add to it, served over ice.
I was going to say, that actually doesn't sound bad.
No, it's a great cocktail.
Makes me sad I can't serve it to my godfather.
Mm.
So, and it was written concerning that which was recorded on mine heart. If it was my heart, it would be booze.
Ha.
And I remembered forthwith that I was a son of kings, because apparently you've forgotten that?
Yeah. It's a little hard to forget, I would think.
I know, I'm like, you've been traveling around with an ensemble, and do they every so often just go, oh, by the way, you're the son of a king? Oh, right. Totally forgot again.
Uh-huh.
Cool story, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And my freedom yearned, or sought, after its kind. After the letter? I remembered also that the pearl for which I was sent down into Egypt, and I began, or came, with charms against the terrible serpent, and I overcame him, or put him to sleep, by naming the name of my father upon him. So now the serpent is your father's name. Awkward.
Yeah.
And I caught away the pearl, and turned back to bear it unto my fathers. Okay, now this is the pearl that they came for. There was no mention of serpent before. I remember that.
Right. Well, and the other thing...
So the serpent just comes out of nowhere.
Well, the other thing that I want to mention is that apparently there are Gnostic traditions and even some mainstream Christian traditions that shortly after Jesus was born, his parents fled to Egypt to avoid being killed by Herod.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember that. So do you think that Jesus was the pearl?
That's what I'm thinking.
That's still awkward.
Yes, it is.
Because the next line is, "And I stripped off the filthy garment and left it in their land, and directed my way forthwith to the light of my fatherland in Egypt." What goddamn garment?
Foreskin?
Context, Thomas.
Foreskin?
Okay, well, yeah, except for that Jesus goes to the temple, though, at a certain point.
Right, right.
So if it's Jesus, that doesn't work.
You have a very good point.
Happens on occasion. So on the way, I found my letter that had awakened me, and it, like as it had taken a voice and raised me when I slept, so also guided me with the light that came from it. So it gave you directions.
Mm-hmm.
Glad to know Google Maps was a thing back then. For at times the royal garment of silk shone before mine eyes, and with love leading me and drawing me onward, I passed by Labyrinthius, or Sarberg, and I left Babylon I thought he was in Egypt. And I left Babylon upon my left hand, and I came unto Messin, or Mation, the Great, that lieth on the shores of the sea, from the heights of Warkon, or Heis. I'm not even going to try that one.
Okay.
Had my parents sent thither by the hand of their treasures, unto whom they committed it because of their faithfulness. Ow.
Have you seen that meme that says Godzilla tried to read this and had a stroke because how fucked up it was?
No, but I am part of a tag group I believe it's called, I tried to read this so hard I now smell toast.
Yeah. It fits. Mm-hmm. All right. But I remembered not the brightness of it. Okay. For I was yet a child and very young when I had left it in the palace of my father. What would that be? But suddenly, when I saw the garment made like unto me as it had been in a mirror.
I think he's referencing that shiny garment he had at the beginning that I think might have been stolen because for some reason he decided to travel with it. Which seems like a really smart thing to do.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. You probably... And I beheld upon it all myself, or saw it wholly in myself, and I knew and saw myself through it, that we were divided asunder, being of one, and again were one in one shape. My brain hurts.
Yeah, I was going to say, why do we keep doing this?
Yeah. We're getting to the point where the left half of the brain is going to look at the right half of the brain and say, it's dark in here and we may die.
It's one of those things that, like, every time I look at it, I'm like, please tell me that this actually will make sense if this was written, like, if I could read the original text in the original language, but I'm pretty sure it won't.
Yeah, you're not wrong, I believe.
All
right. Yea, the treasurers also which brought me the garment, I beheld that they were two, yet one shape was upon both, one royal sign was set upon both of them. Oh, my head hurts. I have no idea what that could possibly mean. The money and the wealth had they in their hands. Okay, so Jeff Bezos types. And paid me the due price and the lovely garment, which was variegated with bright colors, so that would make him Joseph of many colors, or Joseph in the Technicolor code, or whatever that thing is.
And now I have that musical stuck in my head.
With gold and precious stones and pearls of comely hue, they were fastened above or in the height. And the likeness of the King of Kings was all in all of it. Sapphire stones were fitly set in it above, or like the sapphire stone were its manifold hues. Oh, my head hurts.
I wore my coat with golden lining. I told you that was stuck in my head.
Well, I've never seen that musical, so.
I've seen a kind of like a movie version of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like the play in and of itself. And I think it did have Donny Osmond. My mom was really, really into it.
Wow.
I was just into Andrew Lloyd Webber, who was the composer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who also is kind of creepy, but
yeah.
I also have not seen Cats, despite the fact that I love the music from Cats. Okay, the band.
I want to see the butthole
music.
I want to see the butthole cut of Cats.
I mean, like, I really need to listen to the GAM, because GAM did it for Patreon bonus, and I can't do it.
But somebody digitally edited a sequence from Cats so that you saw, because I'm sure as a cat owner you understand this, you see a lot of cat butt.
Oh yeah,
and
I was gonna say I actually thought that there was a copy that had cat butts.
No, but there was
it
was a meme. They were screaming, "Release the cat butt cut."
But I mean, at least the storyline to Cats, which is as vague as possible, if you ever watch the entire show, you have to kind of look at it from almost a kid's eye view. Is still better than Godspell. If you ever watch Godspell, God help you.
I have been told that, Cats is based on the book by, I forget who it is, but it's Old Possum's Practical.
Yes, Eliot, I believe.
Yeah. And a guy who's a fan of musicals has said that in reality, Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote Cats because he had friends who were hugely talented, and he wanted to do a piece where he could have them all together showcasing off their talents, and it's not really designed to make sense.
Like I said, there's not a very specific storyline. A lot of the songs are introducing different characters, who, of course, all of them are cats. There's a very loose piece where this cat, who's like super evil, kidnaps Deuteronomy, who's kind of like the de facto leader. I was gonna say, do you care about spoilers?
No.
No,
I don't.
Yeah. So they kidnap Deuteronomy, and then Deuteronomy comes back from Mr. Mistopheles, the wonderful magical cat. And then there's kind of that's like two pieces that almost make a story.
Yeah.
And then there's an over arc of, I believe, Fitzgerald? I can't remember her name. Most of the cats you don't really get a name for, so sometimes it's like, oh, that one in the credits. But you have this cat who's older, who's bedraggled, who everyone keeps shying away from and treating like she's awful, and you're just like, what the heck? Why is these cats who are all coming together and having fun not liking this cat? And that's where the song Memories comes in. And the whole thing is, when I was a kid, basically it was she dies and she gets to go up to the next, basically cat heaven or whatever. So like I said, loosest storyline. Godspell, on the other hand, is the book of Matthew set to music.
Okay.
So you can tell how bad that's gonna be.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I would rather watch cats and nothing but cats for the rest of my life. Granted, I like cats, so.
Yeah.
Back to this bullshit. And again, I saw that throughout its motions of knowledge were being sent forth, and it was ready to utter speech. What was ready to utter speech? And I heard it speak. What is speaking? The garment? The letter?
Yes.
Ah! Nouns, Thomas. Nouns. So whatever is speaking, I am of him that is more valiant than all men, for whose sake I was reared up with the Father himself. Huh? And so I perceived his statue, or I perceived in myself that my stature grew in accordance with his working. Oh, dear God.
Yes.
Also perceived his stature. I perceived in myself that my stature grew in accordance with his working. Okay. And all its royal motions rested upon me as it grew towards the impulse of it. And with its kingly motions, it was spreading itself towards me. The garment? What is doing all of these things?
I don't know.
And it hastened, reaching out from the hand of him that brought it, that unto him that would receive it. And me also did yearning arouse to start forth and meet it and receive it. And I stretched forth and received it, and adorned myself with the beauty of the colors therefore. Okay, this has to be... He has written an entire, and I don't want to say paragraph, because it's not quite a paragraph, about putting on a robe. About the robe coming towards him, and him putting it on.
Yep.
Tolkien would tell him to shut the fuck up. Actually, Tolkien should have read this before he became a Christian.
Yeah.
And I stretched myself forth and received it, and adorned myself with its beauty of the colors thereof. And in my royal robe, excelling in beauty, I arrayed myself wholly. And when I had put it on, I was lifted unto the place of peace and homage, and I bowed my head and worshipped the brightness of the Father, which had sent me it unto me, for I had performed his commandments, and he likewise that which he had promised, and at the doors of his palace, which was the beginning, I mingled among, and he rejoiced over me, and received me with him into his palace, and all his servants do praise him with the sweet voices. And he promised me that with him I shall be sent unto the gates of the king, that with my gifts and my pearl we may appear together before the king. Okay, you can verify that the words I read are the same words that are on the screen, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because there are days I'm doing this and I'm like, please note, listeners, this is what's written on the screen. It only sounds like I'm reading gibberish.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have, I think, a show title for this episode.
I think I smell toast. No, robe. It's got to go with the robe.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Well, I was going to say something like Thomas and the techno gibberish robe, or Jacob and the techno gibberish robe.
Oh, Thomas and the robe of gibbering. There's a D&D monster.
Right.
What is it called? It's like a gibbering. Oh my gosh, a gibbering mouther.
Yeah, that sounds right. I haven't played D&D since the first Bush was in office.
I played 3.5 on Monday.
Yeah.
I am playing a snail.
I'm old enough I bought 2nd edition when it was new.
My dad had a bunch of books that Mom had him sell at a garage sale, and it will be a forever sadness that I did not rescue them.
Yeah.
Because if nothing else, they would be worth something, but also, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Because D&D advanced.
Yeah, I know.
But, c'est la vie, c'est la vie.
It's like my dad traded a 68 Ford Mustang convertible. So, a very nice car. For a 1973 Ford Pinto wagon. Pintos have the reputation of bursting into flames if you rear end them. So that's what my dad did, was basically trading a modern jet aircraft for the Hindenburg.
Ew.
Yeah, Dad did not get the good trade.
The Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. Many of the episodes are also on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter. @TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fuznuts.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.